today we're going to be doing my February reading wrap up and go through the 5 books that I read in February. It was a little bit of a slower reading month in February. Obviously the month is quite short anyway. There was some chunkier books in here that took me a bit longer to read, and I also worked away for a whole week of February, so I was most of the way through a book but didn't quite get to finishing it as I probably would have if I was at home. So let's just run through the 5 books that I read in February and let me know how your reading month went and whether you read any of these. Have is Intermezzo, which is Sally Rooney's newest release and is a bit more of a literary fiction read. We follow Peter and Ivan in its entirety. This book is literally a tale of what happens after Peter and Ivan's dad passes away. It's what happens in their day-to-day lives, how one event leads to the other, and there's not necessarily a specific plot line that we're following. It is literally just a story of these two people's lives in the wake of their father passing away. There was a lot of quotes in here, as there is with Sally Rooney books in general, about just the whole purpose of life, the mundaneness of life, and I enjoyed that part, like going through highlighting, well, underlining some of the quotes and stuff in here. So I did do a reading vlog, so if you do want to hear some of those, then I did pop them in there. It's basically just about Ivan and Peter, so it took a little bit of a while to get through this book because of there being a lack of specific plot line or storyline that we're following. So I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I didn't enjoy it as much as other Sally Rooney books, so I literally adored Normal People and gave that a 5 stars. So I thought that this one might be the same, but it wasn't. But it still has the same type of writing that Sally Rooney has throughout all of her books, but it just was a little bit more, just less of a plot line. I feel it was quite a thick book as well, but still enjoyable, but 3 stars overall. The book that I read was on my Kindle, and that was Starstruck. Again, this was in a reading vlog, so you can see this. It was in my reading romances for a week, which is up before this one. I've just realised that I told you Intermezzo was in a reading vlog, but that reading vlog is not up yet, so you can watch that soon. The romance reading vlog is up, and Starstruck was one of the books that I read in there, so I was kindly sent this as an ARC from the author. I found Holly on TikTok, and she has got a couple of other books out as well. This book is now out too, and it is on Kindle Unlimited if you do want to give it a read. So it's a college romance with elements of fake dating, and we're following Goldie and Tristan. Goldie is a childhood TV star who's looking for a bit of a more normal life, and Tristan is a musician who's looking for a bit of a fresh start, which leads them to both enroll in Liberty College. They end up in the same class at this college and bump into each other, kind of have a little meet cute on the first day, and then it turns out that they're in the same friendship group. So then they're spending a lot of time together, and they kind of come to an agreement that it would be mutually beneficial for them to fake date, and the relationship just kind of grows from there. You can really see that these two people do really care for each other, but they're holding a lot of baggage just from their upbringings and their lifestyles that they don't want to necessarily give to each other. There are some deeper themes in here as well, so you might want to check some trigger warnings just in case. It is definitely such a cute college romance, and I ended up giving it a 3.75 star, and I think there is going to be more books in this series. So there was something that happened at the end that was quite drastic with one of their friends, so I'm excited to kind of see what's going on there. There was also some hints of some other romances that potentially might blossom. I picked up on a bodyguard romance that might be happening in the friendship group somewhere, so whether that's gonna come to fruition in a book, I don't know, but if so, I will be reading it. I read was The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, and of course I had to read this in this month because it is set on Valentine's Day. It is a YA romance where we follow Emily, and she is reliving Valentine's Day over and over again. A series of events keep happening on that day, specific things, but all in a different order, if that makes sense, or in a different manner on each day, and she doesn't really know what she's meant to be changing to not have to relive the Valentine's Day. She continually has to deal with something, well, many things going wrong on this day, including her boyfriend cheating on her, so she's trying to swap things out on each Valentine's Day that she's living to determine what it is that's she's meant to be changing. It's a cute, quick romance. It's definitely very YA because it's very high school romance, if that makes sense. I feel like if I'd have read this earlier on in my reading journey, I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. I still enjoy it, so I gave it a 3 star, but I feel like it was a very young YA romance, which is meant to be, but I feel like now that I'm in my 20s, just some of the way that our main character dealt with certain things, I wouldn't have personally dealt with it that way. I probably would have at the time if I was that age now, but not at this age. So I feel like I might be a little bit past YA romances, but it was still enjoyable. It was cute, quick, and the fact that it was on Valentine's Day was just cute, but I feel like you don't necessarily have to read it around that time. You could just read it at any time in the year and it'll probably still be enjoyable. Read my book club's book of the month, and that book was Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, which I believe was actually released this month. We're following Scarlett and Lucas, who are at the same college. So Scarlett is a diver and she's kind of overcoming some fears and things since she had a bit of a accident in her diving, so she's working through some personal life struggles. But Lucas, who goes to the same college as her, he's a swimmer on their swim team. I think he's had like a couple of Olympic medals and stuff, so they're both very good within their respective categories. After a secret about both of them is revealed at a party, they kind of form a friends with benefits situation. So it's obviously wrote in Ali Hazelwood's quirky style of writing, but I just didn't enjoy it as much as other Ali Hazelwood books, so I gave this one a 3.75. so still enjoyed it, just not as much as her STEM romances. I feel like although I don't know anything about STEM, I was really intrigued by like that aspect of it. And in Checkmate, I didn't know anything about chess, but that was still really interesting. But I wasn't as interested in the diving and swimming facts and terminology and stuff. I don't know why, I just didn't connect with this one as much. I feel like some people rated it 5 stars, some people really did like this, but I think it just probably wasn't for me necessarily. And I feel like there was some side characters and some random plots thrown in there that didn't then come into fruition, and it didn't really make sense to me. But I still enjoyed it. I still love Ali Hazelwood's writing and I'll still read anything that she writes, but just not as much as her other books. The book that we read in February was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which I absolutely loved and I cannot wait to continue this series. I gave this one 4 stars. It's the first book in a YA mystery series and we follow Pip. She's completing a project for school during her summer break where she has to conduct research and write an essay on a topic of her choice. She is selected to investigate a crime that happened in their town 5 years ago. The case was closed, but she convinced that the person convicted was not the killer. She spends her summer going back over the facts, investigating potential suspects to try and find out who committed this crime. Kind of gave the vibes of Pretty Little Liars, so I feel like if you enjoyed Pretty Little Liars, then you would enjoy this book. Can't wait to continue the series. I'm not quite sure how the series is going to follow on because I felt like you probably could have read this one as a standalone. There are a couple of loose threads on certain people who were investigated as a suspect and were a little bit suspicious, but they weren't involved or don't seem to be involved in this specific case. So maybe we're going to follow them in the later books. I'm not sure, but definitely enjoyable. Like I say, 4 stars. Really enjoyed it, and I seriously can't wait to continue the series because it was just so easy to read, and I liked the fact that there's mixed media. So there's like transcripts of interviews, there's maps, there's photos of stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting. All the books that I read in February, let me know whether you read any of them, whether you enjoyed them, whether you agreed with my reviews or you might feel completely differently. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you in another one super soon.